an armored van suddenly disappears from the road. Inside it was $300,000 cash and 2 security guards who were never seen alive again. No witnesses, no CCTV, and no clue of robbery. But weeks later, when a body was recovered from a lake, the FBI first realized that this case was much deeper than a simple heist. Every piece of evidence was pointing toward someone who was a master in planning and seemed impossible to catch. As the investigation progressed, 2 names came forward, 2 brothers whose truth will leave you stunned. Was all this done just for money? Or was there another story behind it? Watch the real story of America's most silent yet deadly heist. So let's start today's true crime story. But before starting, if you enjoy our true crime series, don't forget to like the video, give your feedback in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more such cases for you. May 24, 1977, Phoenix, Arizona. A private security company withdrew $33,000 from its vault, some in cash and some in coins. This money was loaded into an armored van. The van was to be driven by Cecil Nuker and Russell Dempsey, both experienced guards. Their job was to deliver the cash safely to various banks. But before leaving, a problem was discovered. The side door lock of the van wasn't working properly. So both decided to first visit the maintenance garage to get it fixed. Because of this, their entire trip got delayed by about an hour. They had to stop at several banks between Phoenix and Flagstaff, 150 miles away. But now it seemed impossible to reach on time. Meanwhile, the banks were waiting for their delivery. They needed that cash to serve their customers. At 10:30 in the morning, a bank called the security company and asked why the van hadn't arrived yet. The company replied that the van had left a little late, but was on its way. Initially, everyone thought it would just be a minor delay, nothing serious. But as the day went on, concern grew. The dispatcher kept calling repeatedly on the radio. "Chase Courier 1. Dempsey, do you copy? This is base, please respond." But there was complete silence from the other side. No reply came. By 4 p.m., there was still no contact. The company grew suspicious that something was wrong and immediately alerted the FBI. Now the story takes a turn. The FBI steps in. The Phoenix field office immediately issued an APB, an all-points bulletin. This alert was sent to all state and local police. An armored van was missing along with its 2 security guards. While daylight remained, the police began searching for the van. Many highways, bank branches, and routes were checked. But after hours of searching, there was no trace of the van, nor any sign of Cecil Nuker or Russell Dempsey. The case was being led by Special Agent Stephen Chenoweth. He's retired now, but the case still remains fresh in his memory. He recalls, "In such cases, our investigation always begins from one question: could the drivers themselves be involved?" The FBI started digging into the personal and professional lives of both guards. It was found that both were married. Their lives appeared completely normal from the outside. There was no irregularity in their records either. But the agents knew that life is often more complicated on the inside than it appears from the outside. Next, the FBI decided to speak with Cecil and Dempsey's wives. That same evening, the agents called both women separately. Both said their husbands never had any financial troubles and had no reason to do something wrong. Even the security company officials confirmed this, saying both men had worked honestly for nearly 20 years, always trustworthy, always punctual. But now the FBI was facing another challenge: the route of the van. It wasn't a simple one-line route. It stretched across the entire state of Arizona, almost 1,000 square miles, most of it barren, deserted, and full of desert terrain. The next morning, a new search operation began. The Arizona Department of Public Safety's helicopter team was sent out. Pilots were told to follow Interstate 17, the same route the guards were supposed to take, heading north toward Flagstaff. Check every exit point, every side road carefully. And soon one pilot's voice came over the radio. "I see a van. About 50 miles north of Phoenix, near a deserted place called Bumblebee." A van was spotted parked off the highway, about a quarter mile in between bushes and sand. It was the kind of place where no vehicle usually goes. Once the location was confirmed, state troopers and local police reached the spot and secured the area. The FBI was informed so that a forensic investigation could be done without disturbing any evidence. When the FBI team arrived, they acted with utmost caution because footprints in the sand around the van could hold vital clues. All the van's doors were locked from the outside. None of the locks were broken. There were no signs of struggle or force, but the real secret lay inside the van. A little later that morning, spare keys were brought in. Only then could the agents enter the van, and what they found was shocking. The van's radio was still on, but no calls had ever been made to the base station. The siren hadn't even been activated. The defense shotgun kept near the driver's seat was still there, with its safety lock still on, meaning even if someone had attacked the van, the guards made no radio call, sent no alert, and didn't even pick up their weapon. Then the team looked toward the back of the van. Some money bags were still there, thousands of dollars in coins remained, but $93,000 cash was missing. On the van floor and on some of the money bags, bloodstains were found, which made one thing clear: someone was injured. But who? One of the guards, or a third person? For the FBI, the biggest concern wasn't the money, it was the two guards. Money could be replaced, but if a life was lost, it couldn't be brought back. Besides the footprints surrounding the van, there were also tire marks from another vehicle nearby. Technicians immediately photographed them and made plaster castings. It now seemed impossible to believe that one person alone had done all this. From what the FBI agents saw, the condition of the van, its location, the blood, the money bags, the tire prints, everything indicated one thing: this wasn't a spontaneous robbery. It was a carefully planned operation involving more than one person. The van's location fell under Mojave County jurisdiction, so Deputy Dale Lent was brought into the case. But Lent wasn't an ordinary deputy. He was a narcotics officer with a special skill, tracking footprints and tire impressions on the ground. Now the investigation was in the hands of one of Arizona's few officers who could present footprints and tire marks as evidence in court. Lent began with a 360-degree survey around the van. He wanted to see every angle. Had the guards been taken away from the van? Was there any spot nearby where someone could have watched the van? The nearby hills and side roads were also checked. There was no sign of the guards, but on a small hill, Lent found several tire and footprint marks, and from there, Interstate 17 was clearly visible, meaning someone had been watching the van's movement from that spot. Then right near the van, Lent found two sets of heavy footprints. This confirmed that at least two people had been there. According to him, another vehicle had come to the van's location. Lent said, that vehicle came off the highway, reached the van, took something, and went back. Maybe it was the guards, maybe the money. But in my opinion it was the money, because there was a path formed there, like someone had come and gone multiple times. Lent carefully examined the tire depth and direction. He noticed that when the vehicle approached the van, the tire marks were lighter, but when it left, the tire marks were deeper. That clearly meant the vehicle was heavier when it left. The FBI now began to believe that the guards had definitely been taken from there, alive, or maybe not. Now the agency decided to take the case public. Media involvement was necessary. An FBI agent recalled, "We tried to make sure the case stayed on newspaper front pages, shown on TV, so that people knew we were still looking for the guards. It worked. Many witnesses came forward. One said he had seen the van parked on the roadside that morning of May 24. Another said he saw a man dressed like a public safety officer walking toward the van. Most witness accounts matched, though some details differed. One said the officer's car was parked in front of the van, another said behind. Some described a different color, others a different model. The FBI quickly contacted the Arizona Department of Public Safety, but the reply was, that morning, at 1:17 a.m., none of our officers stopped any armored van. Now a new suspicion had entered the case. Was that officer not real? Had someone dressed as a police officer to trap the guards? As more witnesses came forward, the FBI's belief strengthened. The man people had seen as a public safety officer was likely not a real one. The witnesses' statements were consistent overall, but the details varied. One said the car was white, another said blue, someone else described a different model.
Some said the vehicle was parked in front, others said behind. The FBI again confirmed with the Arizona Department of Public Safety, and the answer was absolutely clear. None of their officers had stopped any armored van on May 24th. Now the agents were convinced that someone had impersonated a police officer to reach the guards. The FBI agents said, "We started to believe that the guards were stopped somewhere along the way. Perhaps they mistook that person for a real police officer, and then they were forcibly taken away because there was no trace of them near the van. It was now assumed that the guards had been forcibly taken somewhere else." The FBI and Deputy Dale Lent began searching along the I-17 highway in the areas where witnesses had reported seeing the van stopped. After miles of searching, Dale Lent finally found the location. The marks on the ground seemed 24 to 48 hours old. Lent said it was clearly visible where the van door opened, where someone stepped out, and where there were drag and pressure marks on the ground as if someone had been forcibly moved. Behind the van, the soil was disturbed and scratched, as if something heavy had been dragged, and nearby were tire marks that matched exactly those found in the deserted area where the van was later abandoned. The surprising part was that the same tire prints were also found further ahead along the interstate, right near the spot where the van was believed to have been stopped first. The investigation was slowly moving closer to the truth. Then came the morning of June 16, 1977. About 300 miles northwest of where the van was found, on the border of Arizona and Nevada, lay a vast lake. Two men had come to fish there, at a place called Davis Cove. Suddenly they saw a body floating in the water. They immediately informed the National Park Service. Within minutes, investigators, local police, and a diving team arrived at the scene. Boats slowly approached the area where the body was visible. When they got close, they saw the body was fully clothed, but the most shocking part was that its head and chest were covered with a thick canvas bag. One officer checked the pockets and found a wallet. The moment they read the name, everyone fell silent. Russell Dempsey, the same guard who had mysteriously disappeared on May 24 with $93,000. After Dempsey's body was recovered from Lake Mead, divers searched the entire area, but there was no trace of Cecil Newkirk, the other guard. However, they did find something else, two wooden sticks tied together with rope. They pulled it into the boat. Investigators suspected it might have been used to strangle someone. Until now, the case had seemed like a robbery, but it had now become a full-fledged murder case. Yet the FBI still had no names, no faces, only one assumption: either it had been done by a real police officer or by someone pretending to be one. On June 16, 1977, the same day Dempsey's body was found, FBI and National Park Service teams began re-examining the entire Lake Mead area. The post-mortem report revealed that Dempsey had indeed suffered a heart attack, but the actual cause of death was strangulation. The strange device made of wood and rope contained strands of Dempsey's hair. Now the FBI was certain this was a pre-planned murder, and whoever did it must have used a boat to dispose of the body. The FBI launched a massive operation. Over 20 agents were deployed across the 247-square-mile lake area. They visited every boat rental shop and questioned everyone. No one had seen anything suspicious. However, agents began collecting all the rental receipts, knowing that someday one of those receipts would lead to a connection. Special Agent Laird Heist, and from the Kingman Division, was assigned to the case. His job was to track every name on every receipt, where they stayed, where they fueled up, where they drove, but so far there was no solid link. The FBI decided that the entire 300-mile route from where the van disappeared to where Dempsey's body was found must be searched inch by inch. The mission began, visiting every gas station and every service stop, because these were the places where vehicle movement could be traced. There wasn't just one route. There were multiple paths leading to Lake Mead, which meant the agents had to check hundreds of stations. The investigation began at a gas station owned by a man named Stan, who happened to know one of the FBI agents. The agent asked if he knew anything about the robbery. Stan's reply changed the course of the entire case. He said, "I've been waiting for someone to talk to me about this." What he revealed completely turned the direction of the story. Stan said that on the morning of May 25th, the day after the robbery, he had received a call from two unknown men. They told him they had gone fishing near Lake Mead at a place called Bonelli Landing. They were drunk and their truck had accidentally gotten stuck in the water. Stan immediately took his tow truck and reached the location. But when he arrived, he saw no fishing equipment, no rods, no boat, no gear. Instead, there were marks in the dust behind the truck, as if something heavy had been dragged across the ground. Stan grew suspicious but said nothing. He simply towed the truck to his service station and wrote up a receipt. When he asked them to sign it, one of the men hesitated briefly before signing his name, Michael Poland. Stan told the FBI clearly that if he ever saw those two men again, he would recognize them. That was the information the agency had been waiting for: a name, a face, and a witness. Following that, the FBI combed through thousands of old receipts from all the boat rental shops around Lake Mead. Within hours, they found one receipt with the name Michael Poland listed as the renter, and the destination was Bonelli Landing, the same place where Stan had towed their truck. Now suspicion was no longer just speculation, it was slowly turning into solid evidence. The FBI decided to re-examine the 4.5-mile stretch of water between Bonelli Landing and the boat rental shop directly across from it. During this search operation, another body was found floating on the surface. The body was completely clothed and wrapped in a heavy bag. When it was pulled out, it was identified as Cecil Newkirk, the second guard who had disappeared with Russell Dempsey on May 24th. There were multiple injury marks on his body, two of which matched the effects of a high-voltage taser gun. His wristwatch, a self-winding model, had stopped at 10:37 p.m. on May 26th. This clearly indicated that Newkirk was murdered around that date and time. Now the FBI was absolutely sure this was not merely a cash robbery, but a meticulously planned double homicide. Under the leadership of Special Agent Stephen Chenoweth, the FBI team began tracing the direction from which the bodies had likely drifted. By calculating water currents, discovery points, and timing, they estimated where the bodies had been thrown from. That location was just about 100 yards from Davis Cove. FBI divers reached the point and searched 12 feet deep beneath the surface. On a rocky underwater ledge, they found something else, a third canvas bag. When the third canvas bag was retrieved from the depths of the lake, it was immediately sent to the FBI lab. What they found inside gave the investigation a new turn. Inside was a license plate resembling one from an Arizona public safety cruiser, essentially a plate that looked like it belonged to a police vehicle. There were also 2 revolvers, so badly corroded that no fingerprints could be recovered. And there were several heavy stones inside, seemingly taken from the Bonelli landing area. Cement dust found inside the bag revealed something crucial. It had been deliberately weighted down to sink underwater. The FBI contacted Stan again. They showed him a photo lineup including Michael Pollan's driver's license photo. Among 6 faces, Stan immediately and without hesitation identified Michael Pollan. Now the FBI had more than just suspicion. They had a name, a face, and a witness. Michael Pollan had become the prime suspect. But then came another name, Patrick Pollan. The FBI hoped that by surveilling Michael they might identify his accomplice. What they found instead was astonishing. They discovered that Michael had no job, yet he was constantly spending money. His house contained a new motorcycle, and the interior looked newly furnished. And there was another face, his younger brother, Patrick Pollan. The FBI found that Patrick too had recently bought a new car. One day when both brothers were at home, an FBI agent complimented their son on the motorcycle. The boy smiled and said, "Dad bought 2 of them, and a lot more stuff too." Now suspicion wasn't limited to Michael. Patrick was also under investigation. The FBI obtained both brothers' financial records, and the picture that emerged confirmed every doubt. Before the robbery, both Michael and Patrick were deeply in debt. After the robbery, all debts were cleared. New vehicles had been bought, and lavish spending was evident. Special Agent Stephen Chenoweth said, "When someone's income and expenses don't match, and they suddenly have a lot of money without any source of income, we know something is wrong." By now, the FBI was tightening its grip on the Pollan brothers. When agents questioned their father, he admitted that on the day of the robbery, his sons had taken the same truck later seen at Bonelli Landing. But one more crucial detail emerged. He revealed that a few weeks before the robbery, he had mixed concrete in the flatbed of that very truck. A flatbed truck is one with an open, level back, designed to carry heavy loads like cement, wood, or machinery. The FBI immediately collected a concrete sample from that truck and sent it to the lab. FBI lab experts compared this sample with the cement dust found on the canvas bags recovered from Lake Mead. The result was conclusive. Both samples came from the same batch. This meant that the truck in which the concrete had been mixed was the same one used to transport the bags later found in the lake. Now the suspicion had turned into hard proof. The FBI contacted Stan once again, this time showing him photos of Patrick Pollan. Stan couldn't identify Patrick, but he immediately recognized the truck he had towed from the lake. The investigation now moved one step further. On the morning of July 27, 1977, FBI agents arrived at Michael Pollan's house with a search warrant. Michael claimed he was a jewelry salesman, and that on the day of the robbery, he had been in Las Vegas buying gems. Agents searched his home and seized multiple receipts. Among them was one for the purchase of a pair of high-voltage taser guns, bought under the name Mark Harris, dated exactly 1 month before the robbery. That was another major clue for the FBI. Not far away, agents reached Patrick Pollan's house. FBI agent Frank Mauri questioned Patrick.
The agents asked a direct question. "Did you and your brother go to Lake Mead?" Patrick replied, "Yes, we went fishing." But his answer was nervous. He kept changing his statements again and again. His voice was trembling, and he couldn't clearly explain his location on or after the day of the robbery. In the middle of this, Patrick received a call. On the other side was Michael Pollan. Michael said on the phone, "Yes, he's here," and then advised Patrick, "Don't say anything to the investigators." FBI agents searched Patrick's house. There they found an entire stash of weapons, along with $6,000 cash. After that, the FBI tracked the records of both brothers' old vehicles that they owned before the robbery. When the tire treads of those cars were compared with the marks found at the crime scene, there was no match. That meant there was still no direct physical evidence, but every indirect clue pointed toward the same thing. Both brothers were involved in the conspiracy. Now, the FBI tracked the gun store from where the taser gun had been purchased under the name Mark Harris. The store clerk couldn't recall the face clearly. He just said that Harris was a white man, around 20 years old.
As the investigation progressed, one doubt began troubling the FBI. Was Michael Polland himself the Mark Harris mentioned on that taser gun receipt? Special Agent Frank Mauri explained, "Our job is to eliminate every logical suspect, and that's what we did." He said Mark Harris could be a common name, but if he's a real person, we have to find him. The FBI tracked every person in the entire country, aged between 25 and 40, with the name Mark Harris. Using driving records, phone books, public databases, they pulled hundreds of names. FBI agents went to dozens of homes to question people, but every time the result was the same: no Mark Harris was connected to this case. That meant there was still no solid proof that Mark Harris was actually Michael Polland. And without direct evidence, the FBI couldn't arrest them. For the next 10 months, the FBI simply kept both Polland brothers under strict surveillance. Special Agent Stephen Chenoweth said, "We even used helicopters for monitoring. We wanted to know what they had done before, what they were doing now, and what they planned next." During this time, the FBI saw that the Polland brothers had finalized a deal to purchase a gaming arcade. Money was flowing, but they had no official source of income. These circumstances strengthened the suspicion, but everything was still circumstantial. That wasn't enough for prosecution. The FBI now needed hard physical evidence. It was April 1978, almost 11 months after the robbery and murders. Until now, the FBI had failed to convince any grand jury that Michael and Patrick Polland should be tried. Special Agent Mauri was still looking for a piece of evidence that could directly connect the Polland brothers to the murders. "We had no fingerprints, no strong eyewitnesses, and no physical piece that clearly proved that Mike and Pat did this," Mauri said. Now his focus shifted to the 3 canvas bags found at Lake Mead. He contacted more than 20 bag manufacturing companies in Phoenix. Everywhere, he received the same answer: no one had ever seen a bag like that. Some even said that maybe those bags had been made outside the city. Mauri was almost ready to give up, but he decided to visit the last shop on his list, and that's where a miracle happened. The shopkeeper recognized the bag immediately. He said, "This bag was made in our company. The size and stitching can only be done by our seamstress." Not only that, he also recognized the cord attached to the bag. It was a special type ordered from a supplier in Georgia. The shopkeeper confidently said, "I'll definitely have the receipt in my records because no one orders such a custom bag without documentation." The FBI obtained years of old order records from that company. They checked every single receipt. About a week later, they found the document they had been searching for, the receipt for 3 custom canvas bags, dated exactly 1 month before the robbery, under the name Mark Harris. This was the same name that had appeared on the taser gun receipt, found in Michael Polland's home. Now the FBI was certain. Mark Harris was none other than Michael Polland's fake identity. That one receipt connected everything the FBI had been trying to piece together for months. It became clear that the same people who ordered those bags were the ones who used them to hide the bodies, and the cement dust found inside the bags matched the dust found in the truck they had used. On May 17, 1978, after almost a year of investigation, a federal grand jury indicted Michael and Patrick Polland for murder, kidnapping, and robbery. The FBI suspected that the Polland brothers might not surrender peacefully. Special Agent Stephen Chenoweth said, "These are the men who murdered 2 people, and we couldn't afford even a single mistake." The FBI formed separate teams for each brother. One team was assigned to capture Patrick Polland, while the other kept Michael under surveillance at a real estate office. Patrick came outside carrying a bag full of weapons. Instead of arresting him immediately, the agents decided to follow him until they found a safe spot for the arrest. When Patrick reached a gaming arcade, the FBI agents stopped him right there. Patrick had a .44 Magnum gun with him, and there were 2 more weapons in his car. Still, he didn't resist arrest. A message was sent over the FBI radio: "Patrick is in custody." Now all eyes were on Michael Polland, who was still inside the real estate office. The FBI feared he might be preparing for an armed confrontation, but then they made a decision. He would be arrested inside the office. As soon as the FBI team entered, Michael Polland surrendered without resistance. During interrogation, he didn't answer a single question, and even advised his brother Patrick to stay completely silent. Although no fingerprints of the Polland brothers were found on either the guards' bodies or the van, Michael was confident that the FBI had no strong evidence against him. Now the case was divided into 2 parts, federal and state, because it involved both a federal robbery and a state murder. It was decided that both trials would be held separately in different courts. In federal court, the trial covered charges of kidnapping and robbery. In state court, it dealt with the murder charges. Based on all the circumstantial evidence collected by the FBI, on February 15, 1979, the federal jury found both brothers guilty. They were sentenced to 100 years in prison. The two guards, hard-working, loyal, and honest, had worked for the company for over 20 years and were just weeks away from retirement. Yet, in their final days, they were brutally murdered. In November 1979, the Arizona state jury also found Michael and Patrick Poland guilty of murder, and this time, they were sentenced to death. But the story didn't end there. The Poland brothers appealed the decision to the Supreme Court of Arizona. The court found that the trial had included testimony from a witness who had been hypnotized, that the taser gun evidence was not strong enough, and that the jury had discussed federal case details in the state case, which was legally improper. As a result, the murder verdict was overturned, and the Poland brothers could no longer be tried again for the same murder. Why? Because under Arizona's parole policy at that time, even if they were convicted again, they could have been released in less than 7 years. By 1982, the Arizona prosecutors had no plans to reopen the murder case. The state prosecutor clearly said, "The evidence is weak, the cost is high, we won't go for a new trial." It began to look like the double murderers would walk free without punishment. But then a new face entered the case, United States Attorney Melvin McDonald. McDonald had been following this case through the media for years, and when he saw that the killers might escape justice, he personally took the initiative. He called the county attorney and said clearly, "If no action is taken now, this case will be lost forever. I want to handle it myself." For the first time in history, a federal attorney was deputized as a state prosecutor. Now began a new battle, to revive a 5-year-old murder case.
Melvin McDonald faced 3 major challenges. Witnesses' memories had faded, many key witnesses had moved to other states, and some critical evidence had already been dismissed by the court. McDonald needed a new angle, something that had never been fully explored before, and then they found it. An old but overlooked piece of evidence. On the wrist of the second guard, Cecil Newkirk, was a self-winding wristwatch. These types of watches work automatically through the movement of the wearer's hand. As long as the hand moves, the watch keeps ticking. The FBI had discovered that the watch had stopped at 10:37 p.m. on May 26. This meant the guard's hand was still moving until that moment, and about 12 hours later the watch had completely stopped. The biggest question now was, did the watch stop because it got submerged in water? To find the answer, the FBI involved watch experts from Switzerland. After thorough examination, they found no water damage inside the watch. It was completely dry from within. That meant the watch stopped only when the wearer's body became completely still. This technical detail turned the entire case upside down. The self-winding watch had now become the FBI's strongest piece of evidence. McDonald and his team aligned the watch's stop time, the moment the truck got stuck at Bonelli Landing, and the presence of the Poland brothers. Everything fit perfectly together. It was now clear that the Poland brothers were at Lake Mead when the watch stopped working. At the same time, they were getting their pickup truck towed from Bonelli Landing. On November 18, 1982, Michael and Patrick Poland were found guilty of murder once again. The judge resentenced both brothers to death by lethal injection. But the brothers appealed the verdict once again, taking the case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. This case became one of the rare instances in American history where the Supreme Court upheld the death sentence. By then, they had nothing left to lose. In 1987, Patrick Poland made a confession to FBI agent Frank Mauri, a confession that revealed the entire truth. Patrick said, "We had watched that van for a whole year. We knew when it left, where it stopped, and at what time it made each bank delivery. We had every detail. They didn't use their personal vehicle. Instead, they rented a car with cash, one that couldn't be traced by the FBI. They modified that car to look like a police vehicle by adding a light bar and fake license plates. That day they waited for hours because the van was delayed. When it finally appeared, Patrick posed as a police officer and stopped it. According to company policy, guards were not allowed to open the van doors under any circumstances, not even for police. But the moment the guards broke that rule, they became completely helpless. Michael locked both guards inside the rear compartment of the van. Patrick was driving the car, and Michael drove the van. But after some time, Patrick noticed that the van was no longer following. When he turned back, he saw Michael beating the guards. They shocked both guards with a high-voltage taser. Then they reached the desert area near Bumblebee, Arizona, and hid both vehicles there. Patrick said that one of the guards might have died from the beating itself. Michael then made a decision. "We'll have to kill the other one too." He had already prepared a rope-like noose tied with 2 wooden sticks. Patrick confessed, "Michael was the mastermind behind it all. He killed them both. I only helped him out of fear." Michael personally placed the rope around the guards' necks and strangled them to death. Patrick also revealed that Michael had buried most of the stolen money somewhere in the desert. When the area was excavated years later, most of the cash had already decayed, destroyed by sand, rain, and time.
Patrick's confession became the final piece of the puzzle for the FBI, a truth they had long suspected but were now hearing straight from one of the killers. The Poland brothers appealed in every court, but every time they were rejected. On June 16, 1999, Michael Poland was executed by lethal injection. All his appeals for clemency were denied. On March 15, 2000, Patrick Poland was also executed by lethal injection. But unlike his brother, Patrick expressed remorse before his death. He said, "I regret the pain I caused people. I wish I had never done any of this." Two brothers, blinded by greed, who fell so low that they brutally murdered two innocent guards just weeks away from retirement. They fought the law for years, but in the end they could not escape justice. If this case shocked you, give it a like. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below.